Welcome to Thundering Legion, a podcast by and for Armed Forces members covering apologetics, interviews, and news and events from a Christian perspective. Our mission is to advance the gospel to Armed Forces members of all nations and build Christian community for the purpose of mutual encouragement and accountability. Now for today's show.
Welcome to another edition of Thundering Legion Current Events. It's April 20th, 2023. Here are some of the stories with moral implications. According to Time magazine, Jack Teixeira, a 21-year-old airman first class serving in the 102nd Intelligence Wing with the Massachusetts Air National Guard, was charged Friday with 2 counts related to retaining and distributing classified and national defense information after hundreds of pages of intelligence documents appeared online in recent months. These documents surfaced in March on the video game social application Discord, apparently being used as evidence in a disagreement by Teixeira. The documents themselves were marked top secret and apparently were hastily photographed hard copies containing highly sensitive information. Some of that information included an honest assessment of a quickly depleting Ukrainian Air Force, as well as details on America's intelligence gathering on allies such as South Korea and Israel. Finally, the documents outline the U.S. intelligence gathering of Russian military movements, as well as a cyber attack on Canadian natural gas infrastructure by the hacking group Zarya. A senior intelligence official described the leak as a nightmare for the Five Eyes, meaning the 5 nations that share intelligence information: the US, Britain, Australia, New Zealand, and Canada. Finally, in addition to the arrest and trial of Airman Teixeira, the Air National Guard 102nd Intelligence Wing, based in Cape Cod, Massachusetts, has currently lost their intelligence mission, while the Air Force Inspector General continues the investigation of how such a large leak occurred for so long without the Air Force knowing. Another airman is in hot water after applying to become a hitman on the parody website rentahitman.com. FBI agents earlier this month arrested Josiah Ernesto Garcia after he submitted an application as a hired killer, even listing some of his military training on his resume. According to an official court release, authorities charged him last Thursday for the use of interstate commerce facilities in the commission of murder for hire. Garcia reportedly first inquired about employment with the site on February 16th, indicating that he's possessed military experience and rifle expertise. After an FBI sting, where Garcia both participated in a phone interview as well as an in-person interview, he was arrested. If convicted, Garcia faces up to 10 years in prison, according to the court release. We as Christians know that in Deuteronomy, the Bible clearly states, "You shall not murder." This is reiterated in the New Testament, where, likely Paul, writes to the Romans, saying, "For the commandments, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not murder, you shall not steal, you shall not covet, and any other commandment, are summed up in this word, you shall love your neighbor as yourself." Therefore, an act of killing an image bearer of God, not done in self-defense, is a sin, and certainly assassination would fall in this category. While the U.S. deals with insider threats, tensions in the North African country of Sudan continue to rise past the boiling point. The clashes in Sudan are between the Rapid Support Force, or RSF, paramilitary group, led by General Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, and Sudanese armed forces, led by General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan. Until the most recent conflict, these 2 generals were allies. According to CBS News, they worked together in 2019 to overthrow Sudan's brutal dictator, Omar al-Bashir, who ruled over the country for 3 decades, sweeping to power as thousands of people took to the streets in a popular uprising against al-Bashir. After the aforementioned coup, a temporary government was set up, intended only to run for a few years before transitioning to a completely civilian-run organization. However, in 2021, al-Burhan, who had become chief of the Shared Military and Civilian Council, dissolved it, declaring he would instead hold elections himself in 2023. After disagreements over which general would be supreme, fighting broke out between the 2 factions on April 8th, and despite 2 separate ceasefires, continues today. As the story in Sudan continues, we will keep you updated. On April 19th, a Senate resolution that would have reversed the abortion policy the VA implemented following the Supreme Court's ruling last year failed on a 51-48 vote. According to military.com, in September, the VA announced that for the first time it would offer abortions in the cases of rape, incest, or where the life or health of the mother is at risk for the pregnancy. This change was made in response to the June Supreme Court ruling in Dobbs v. Jackson, women's health organization, that allowed states to ban abortions. Since their policy change, the VA has paid for 34 abortions. Senator Tommy Tuberville of Alabama and other Republicans argue that the VA policy violates a 1992 law that directed the VA to provide reproductive health care except for infertility services, abortions, or pregnancy care, unless that care is needed because of a service-connected condition. Republican Senators Susan Collins of Maine and Lisa Murkowski of Alaska voted against a resolution causing it to fail. Both senators said they believe the VA policy is consistent with what's known as the Hyde Amendment, a rider included in annual spending bills that bars federal funding for abortions except in cases of rape, incest, or when the mother's life is at risk. As discussed in previous episodes, abortion of any kind, except absolutely necessary to preserve life, is an absolute sin of killing, just as in the case of the attempted airman assassin. That's the news you need to know. Subscribe to the Thundering Legion podcast for more interviews, analysis, and scripture-based discussion on timeless topics. And if you have news topics that you'd like to hear covered on our current events episode, reach out to us on Instagram or Facebook via the links in each episode description.
Thanks for listening to Thundering Legion. Don't forget to subscribe, leave us a rating and review. Please share this episode with another Armed Forces member who needs encouragement in their faith. Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode.